What makes music original, and do you actually want your music to sound original? This is a little discussion from my Twitch channel all about that. Make sure you follow me there for more of this. Oh yeah. No music is original anyway. Like it's literally impossible to be wholly original. It's also really not interesting. I actually don't think to be in 100% original is usually that interesting for the audience. Maybe it's fun for the people making the music itself. Like, you know, I used to go to a lot of like experimental noise kind of gigs where they would be taking often classical instruments, cellos, violins, flutes, and stuff like that, and trying to move as far away from traditional music as possible. It's very textural, it's very cinematic, but yeah, really explorative, and a lot of it is very improvised based. Even if it is written, it has a lot of improvisation and exploration kind of written into it, and a lot of the times I was like, this is really, really cool because of that, because the fact that it's experimentative and improv. But as a listener, it's sort of it's so disconnected from everything else that we all listen to that it's really hard to connect with emotionally. So if you're trying to move away, if you're trying to be wholly original, like, people actually want to hear familiar sounds and then twist it ever so slightly, and that's sampling. Yeah. That's all it is, really. Is you're taking, especially take an old R&B sample and flip it. It's like, oh, that's cool. That sounds like an R&B song, but it's a hard hitting boom bap track. So what the hell is the difference between that and doing this? You know, like we're still exactly getting in there and putting together this little jigsaw puzzle, and maybe we're just like, you can think of yourself as like a sound selector at that point rather than
you know, that experimental sound that you were just talking about. It's not like you can put that on in the background while you're cooking dinner or something, you know. It's not what the people really want. Like, I would be able to appreciate it purely because people are experimenting, but you're right, like when I'm going to like put an album on, I want to hear something like a sonata, you know? Something I can pop along to and not have to think about too much. Vibey.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, know your audience. So, like, not saying people shouldn't be making that shit, because they absolutely should be making it. If it's what they want to be working on. But yeah, you know, if you're trying to be like original for the sake of it in a genre like hip hop or R&B or pop or blah 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 blah, like. No, you need to actually sound. You need to sound a little bit like everybody else, because that's how you. That's sort of your in. And I find someone like Kanye is such a good example of someone who can take really popular sounds and then have these really experimental elements. But because it's such a familiar bass line, not bass line in terms of the actual instrument, but a familiar bass line in terms of kind of what you're sonically familiar with. It introduces you then into these new concepts of his.